I want to tell you a story. It is not a made-up story. It is the kind of story that has happened to millions of real people all over the world. People who worked hard, people who tried their best, people who, by every reasonable measure, were doing okay, until one ordinary Tuesday morning, they were not. Imagine this. You wake up on a Tuesday, normal Tuesday. You make your tea or your coffee. You get dressed for work, and then your phone rings. It is the hospital, your mother, a fall. She is okay, but she needs treatment. Right now, today. You say, do whatever she needs. You hang up, and then you sit down because you just remembered something. You remembered that last month, when the rent went up and the school fees were due at the same time, you used the last of your savings to cover the gap. And you told yourself, I will put it back next month. But next month came and went, and you did not put it back. And now you are sitting in your kitchen on an ordinary Tuesday morning, your mother in a hospital bed, and you have nothing. Not a single coin set aside for exactly this kind of moment. The moment you always told yourself would never come. But it came. It always comes. That story is not dramatic for dramatic's sake. That story is the financial reality of hundreds of millions of people around the world right now. People who are one unexpected event away from a crisis they have no way to handle. A job loss, a medical bill, a car breakdown, a broken roof, a family emergency. These are not rare events. These are the normal events of a normal human life. And yet most people are completely unprepared for every single one of them. Today, we are going to fix that. We are going to talk about the one financial tool that stands between you and that kitchen table moment. The one thing that, if you build it, changes everything about how you survive the unexpected. It is called an emergency fund. And today, we are going to learn the whole truth about it. What it is, why most people do not have one, what happens when you do not, and exactly how to build one starting from wherever you are right now. Let us begin. Okay, let us start from the very beginning. Because the phrase emergency fund gets thrown around a lot in financial conversations, but almost nobody takes the time to explain what it actually means, what it is really for, and why it is completely different from regular savings. So let me break it down as simply as possible. An emergency fund is money that you set aside and do not touch for anything except a genuine emergency. Think of it like this. Imagine your life is a journey. You are walking down a road. Most days the road is flat and manageable, but every so often, and you never know exactly when, the road throws something at you. A hole, a storm, a steep unexpected hill. Your emergency fund is the sturdy pair of boots you are wearing when that happens. It does not stop the storm from coming, but it means the storm does not stop you. Now here is something really important that most people get wrong. An emergency fund is not the same as your regular savings. They are two completely different things with two completely different jobs. Your regular savings have a goal. They are working towards something specific, a house, a holiday, a business, school fees. They are money that is going somewhere. Your emergency fund is going nowhere. It is not working toward anything. It is not invested. It is not being used. It is just sitting there, quietly, patiently, waiting for the one day when everything goes wrong at once. The emergency fund has only one job: to be there, fully, immediately, no questions asked. And here is something else. The word emergency is important. A new phone is not an emergency. A sale on something you wanted is not an emergency. A night out because you had a long week is not an emergency. An emergency is something unexpected, urgent, and necessary. Your health, your home, your ability to survive. Anything that, if left unhandled today, causes serious damage to your life. Keep those two lists in mind, because the clarity of what counts as an emergency is what keeps your emergency fund intact when the temptation to dip into it arrives. And it will arrive. So if an emergency fund is so clearly important, if the idea of having money set aside for the worst days of your life is so obviously a good idea, why do so many people not have one? This is not a simple question, and I want to give it the honest answer it deserves, because the reasons go much deeper than people just being careless or irresponsible. Why most people have nothing set aside. Reason 1. There is nothing left to set aside for a large portion of people, especially in countries where the cost of living has outpaced wages. There is genuinely no money left after the basics are paid. Rent, food, transport, school fees, these alone consume almost everything that comes in. Telling someone in this situation to build an emergency fund without addressing the income gap is like telling someone who is drowning to learn to swim. True, not helpful. If this is you, I want you to stay watching, because we are going to talk about building an emergency fund even from zero, even from very little, in a way that is honest and realistic. Reason 2. It feels too far away. To start, you have heard that an emergency fund should be 3 to 6 months of your expenses. That number feels enormous. It feels like climbing a mountain that is too high to even see the top of. So instead of starting small, people do not start at all. They wait until they can do it properly, and properly never comes. This is one of the most painful financial traps that exists. Waiting for the perfect amount stops you from saving the amount that is possible today. Reason 3, something always gets in the way you try to save. You really do. You put a little aside. And then the school fees come in higher than expected, or the car needs a repair, or someone needs help. And that little bit you saved gets used. Again and again. This is the emergency fund that never quite gets built. The one that goes up a little and gets emptied a little and never quite gets a chance to grow. And over time, people stop trying because it never seems to stick. Reason 4. The false safety net. Some people believe they do not need an emergency fund because they have family, because someone will help them if things go wrong, because they can borrow if they need to. And while community and family support are genuinely beautiful and real, they are not a financial plan. The people in your life have their own pressures, their own emergencies, their own gaps. And relying on them as your only plan for a crisis puts a strain on those relationships that money problems are very good at breaking permanently. Reason 5. It does not feel urgent until it is, and perhaps the biggest reason of all. An emergency fund does not feel necessary on the days when nothing is wrong. When life is moving along normally, the idea of locking money away in a jar that you never touch feels almost wasteful. Why park money doing nothing when there are things you need today? This is the cruelest trick that financial security plays on us. The time when building an emergency fund feels least urgent, when life is calm, is exactly the time it is most important to build it. Let me tell you what actually happens in real, practical terms when an emergency arrives and there is no fund to meet it. Picture this. You have been working the same job for 4 years. You are not getting rich, but you are managing. The rent gets paid. The children eat. Life is not easy, but it is moving. Then one morning, your employer calls you in and tells you the company is downsizing. Your last day is in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Now, if you have an emergency fund, this is painful. It is frightening, but it is survivable. You have time, you have options. You can breathe, you can job hunt without desperation. You can say no to the wrong opportunity because you are not starving yet. But if you have no emergency fund, this same event becomes a different story entirely. Week 3. The rent is due. You have nothing. You call your brother. He is also short this month. You try a mobile loan app. The interest is punishing, but you are desperate. You take it. Week 4. Something breaks in the house. You cannot fix it. You are still job hunting, but now you are applying for anything, anywhere, because the pressure is unbearable. You accept the first offer that comes, even though it pays less than before, even though the conditions are worse, because you have no choice. When you have no emergency fund, you have no negotiating power. And that loan from week 3 is now due, with interest. And the cycle that was always just one bad event away from starting has started. That is not a horror story. That is a Tuesday for millions of people. And the difference between surviving that Tuesday and being broken by it comes down to one thing: whether or not you have money waiting for exactly that moment. Let me be specific about what no emergency fund actually costs you. Because it is not just one thing. The real costs of having no emergency fund first, it costs you your choices. When you are desperate, you cannot afford to wait for the right opportunity. You take what is available, not what is right for you. A bad job, a bad loan, a bad deal. Desperation removes options. Second, it costs you your relationships. When crisis hits and family and friends become your only safety net, money stress becomes relationship stress. Requests for help. Borrowing that takes too long to repay. The slow, quiet damage that financial strain does to even the strongest bonds between people. Third, it costs you your health. Financial stress is one of the leading causes of anxiety, sleep problems, and depression worldwide. The constant low-level fear of what happens if something goes wrong does not stay in your wallet. It lives in your body. It lives in your sleep. It lives in your ability to think clearly and make good decisions. Fourth, it costs you more money. This one is particularly painful. When emergencies are handled with debt, credit cards, mobile loans, borrowed money, they do not just cost what the emergency cost. They cost that amount plus interest. An emergency that cost $10,000 could end up costing $15,000 or $20,000 by the time the debt is repaid. Having no emergency fund makes emergencies more expensive. Okay, you understand what an emergency fund is. You understand why not having one is dangerous. Now let us get into the practical part. How much do you actually need? The standard advice you will hear is this: save 3 to 6 months of your living expenses. That is the goal. But here is what nobody says after that advice. The goal is not the starting point. The goal is the destination. And right now, all we need is a direction, not the destination. Let me break down what 3 to 6 months actually means in real terms. Because this number sounds big in the abstract, but becomes much more manageable when you look at it correctly. Your emergency fund is not 3 to 6 months of your income. It is 3 to 6 months of your essential expenses. There is a big difference. Your essential expenses are only the things you absolutely must pay to keep your life running. Rent or mortgage, basic food, transport to work, essential utilities, medical costs, school fees for your children. It does not include the restaurant meals, the subscriptions, the weekend treats, the clothing beyond what is needed, the entertainment, just the core, just the essentials. When most people actually do this calculation honestly, when they strip out everything non-essential and look at what they actually need to survive, the number is often smaller than they expected. Not small, but smaller. And 3 months of that number is the minimum target. 6 months is the strong, comfortable target. But even 1 month, even 2 weeks, is infinitely better than nothing. Because in a crisis, even 2 weeks of breathing room changes everything. Here is the most important thing I want you to take from this section. Do not let the size of the full goal stop you from starting a much smaller version of it today. A small emergency fund is not a failure. It is the beginning of a full one. One question that does not get discussed enough: where exactly should you keep your emergency fund? The answer has 2 rules, and both rules matter equally. Let me explain both of those. It must be accessible because emergencies do not give you advance warning. If your money is locked in an investment that takes 2 weeks to access, it is useless when you need it at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. Your emergency fund needs to be reachable within 24 hours, ideally the same day. But it must not be too accessible. Because if your emergency fund is sitting in the same account you use for everyday spending, the same account your debit card pulls from, it will disappear. Not all at once. Slowly. A little withdrawal here because you needed it. A small transfer there because something came up. Until the balance that was your safety net is just a number that slowly became 0. The ideal home for your emergency fund is a separate savings account that you do not have easy daily access to. Not the account your salary lands in. Not the account your card is linked to. A separate, dedicated account with one purpose and one purpose only. Some people go a step further and keep it at a different bank entirely, so there is a small amount of friction to access it. You cannot tap it by accident. You have to make a deliberate decision to move money from that account. That friction is not inconvenience. That friction is protection. If a formal bank account is not accessible to you right now, a physical envelope in a secure location, a dedicated savings slot in a mobile money app, a trusted savings group with clear withdrawal rules, any of these can work. The principle is the same: separate, protected, available when it matters. This is the section I want you to pay the closest attention to. Because everything we have talked about so far, the importance of an emergency fund, the danger of not having one, is only useful if we also talk honestly about how to build one when money is already very tight. Because for some of you watching this, the real question is not whether you should build an emergency fund. You already know you should. The real question is, how do you build one when there is barely enough to get through the month as it is? Here is the honest answer. It starts smaller than you think, and it starts today, not when things improve. Step 1, set your first target, not your final target. Forget 3 months for now. Forget 6 months. Your first target is one single month of essential expenses. Just one. That is the mountain you are climbing. Everything beyond that is a bonus. And if even 1 month feels too large, set your first target as 2 weeks, or 1 week, or the smallest amount that would actually make a difference in a real emergency. Make the target real and reachable, not technically correct and impossible. Step 2. Find the smallest possible amount you can save right now, not the amount you wish you could save. Not the amount that would be impressive. The smallest realistic amount that, if you moved it into a separate account the moment your money arrived, you would not immediately need back. Maybe that is a very small percentage of your income. Maybe it is a fixed tiny amount. The number does not need to impress anyone. It needs to be real. Step 3, automate it or make it the very first thing you do the moment money arrives. Whether it is salary, a payment from a client, a gift, any income at all, the emergency fund gets its contribution first. Before food. Before anything, even if the amount is tiny. If you can automate this through your bank, do it. Set up a standing order. Let it happen without requiring your decision every month. Because every month that requires a fresh decision is a month that life can talk you out of it. Step 4. Protect it like it is already saving your life. Because it is once you start building your emergency fund, no matter how small, protect it with the same seriousness you would give to a real emergency. Because you are building toward the moment when it will be used for exactly that. Do not borrow from it for non-emergencies and promise to replace it later. The road to an empty emergency fund is paved with those promises. Step 5, rebuild it immediately after any use. If a real emergency comes and you use your fund, first of all, be grateful. It worked. It did its job. That is what it was there for. But the moment that emergency passes, rebuilding becomes the #1 financial priority. Because life does not guarantee that the next emergency will wait until you are ready for it. You know what an emergency fund really is? It is a letter to your future self, written with coins instead of words. Every small amount you put in is a sentence in that letter. And the letter says, I see you. I know something hard is coming for you eventually. I do not know when. I do not know what. But I wanted you to know I prepared for you. I saved something for the hard day. So when that day comes, and you are sitting at a kitchen table on an ordinary Tuesday morning with your heart in your throat, you will not be alone. You will have this. That is what you are building. Not just a savings balance. A letter of protection written to the version of yourself who needs it most. Before we close, I want to tackle the most common myths and excuses that stop people from building an emergency fund. Because these ideas sound reasonable. They feel reasonable. But they are quietly keeping millions of people financially exposed. Myth 1, I have a credit card for emergencies. A credit card is not an emergency fund. A credit card is a loan. When you use a credit card in an emergency, you are not solving the emergency. You are borrowing the solution and agreeing to pay more for it later, with interest. A real emergency fund costs you nothing to use. A credit card emergency costs you the emergency plus the interest plus the stress of repaying the debt while still recovering from the crisis. Myth 2, my family will help me if something goes wrong. Your family loves you, and they may well help, but they are not a financial plan. They have their own expenses, their own pressures, their own potential emergencies happening at the same moment yours is. Depending on others as your only safety net is not just risky for you, it is a burden you are placing on people who already have enough to carry. Myth 3, I will start when I earn more. This is perhaps the most expensive myth of all, because more money does not automatically create saving habits. More money often creates more spending. The people who build emergency funds on a small income are the same people who build bigger ones on a larger income, because the habit is already there. The habit does not come with the money rewards the habit. Myth 4, 3 to 6 months is impossible for me, so there is no point starting. We addressed this earlier, but it deserves repeating. An emergency fund of any size is better than none. Even a very small amount means that the smallest emergencies, the flat tire, the small medical cost, the minor home repair, do not become debt. And stopping small emergencies from becoming debt is itself a form of financial protection. Myth 5, if I save money, I will just end up using it on something else. This one is honest and self-aware, and it deserves an honest answer. Yes, if your emergency fund is in the wrong place, too accessible, with no clear boundary around it, you probably will use it on something else. That is not a character flaw. That is a system design problem. The solution is not to give up on saving. The solution is to put the money somewhere with more friction, a separate account, a different bank, a locked savings product, so that using it requires a deliberate choice, not just a moment of weakness. Let me bring us back to where we started. That person sitting at the kitchen table on a Tuesday morning. That moment of reaching for something that is not there. That awful, silent, stomach-dropping realization that the safety net you always meant to build was never built. That moment is not inevitable. It feels like it is. It feels like emergencies are just a part of life that we have to survive as best we can. But the truth, the real truth that this video has been building toward, is this. You cannot stop the phone from ringing with bad news. You cannot prevent job losses or medical bills or broken cars or leaking roofs. Life will send all of those things to you eventually, in its own time, on its own schedule, without asking your permission. But you can decide, right now, today, before the next one comes, that when it arrives, you will not be standing at a kitchen table with empty hands. Here is what I want you to picture. Same Tuesday, same phone call, same crisis arriving without warning. But this time, when you sit down after the call, you do not feel that hollow falling feeling. You feel something different, something quieter, something that took months of tiny, patient, almost invisible contributions to build. You feel prepared, not rich, not untouchable, just prepared. You know that this crisis, whatever it costs, has been planned for, maybe not perfectly, maybe not completely, but enough. Enough that you will not have to borrow at punishing interest. Enough that you will not have to call your brother, who is also short this month. Enough that you can handle it with your head up instead of your back against a wall. That feeling, that quiet, solid, unshakable feeling of being prepared, is what an emergency fund actually gives you. Not just money, peace. So here is what I am asking you to do. Not tomorrow, not when you earn more, not when everything is sorted. Today, open a separate account or find a separate physical place specifically for your emergency fund. Give it a name. Write down your first target, even if it is the smallest number you can imagine. And when the next money arrives in your life, even the smallest amount, put something into that fund first. Not everything, just something. And then do it again next time, and the time after that. Because the Tuesday morning is coming for all of us. We do not know which Tuesday, we do not know what it will look like, but it is coming. And when it gets here, the only question that will matter is, did you build something for this moment? Start today, even with the tiniest amount. Your future self is counting on it. If this video helped you, share it with one person in your life who needs to hear it. Like and subscribe for more honest conversations about money that nobody else is having simply enough. I will see you in the next one. Take care of yourself, and take care of your future.